For over a decade, the Boeing 787 Dreamliner was seen as a symbol of aviation perfection, an aircraft so advanced, so meticulously engineered, that a fatal crash seemed almost impossible. But then, Air India Flight 171 fell from the sky. In just 30 seconds, a routine flight turned into a fireball that killed nearly 280 people, including students, families, doctors, and crew. The investigation began quietly, framed as a tragic anomaly. But then something changed. Behind the scenes, a forensic discovery surfaced, one hidden deep inside the charred remains of the Dreamliner. And when scientists analyzed it, they didn't find a broken bolt or a burnt cable. What they found was far worse, a flaw so fundamental, so damning that it sent shockwaves across the aviation industry. And now, Boeing's proudest machine is at the center of a global reckoning. This isn't just about one crash anymore. This is about the system we trusted to carry millions, and how close it came to betraying us all. On June 12, 2025, Air India Flight 171 lifted off from Ahmedabad under perfect weather conditions. No turbulence, no storms, no warning, just smooth skies and a confident crew at the helm of a Boeing 787 Dreamliner. But within seconds, everything unraveled. The aircraft climbed only 625 feet before stalling. Then, in what investigators later called a controlled freefall, it plunged into the BJ Medical College hostel, igniting a wall of fire that consumed concrete, metal, and lives. The plane's two GE engines, a model praised for its power and efficiency, went silent. The captain sent out a mayday, but it was abruptly cut off. Rescue workers found devastation on the ground, families torn apart, students killed in their dorms, a survivor thrown from the aircraft by some freak miracle. And yet, in the midst of all this horror, one question echoed louder than the sirens. How does one of the safest planes in aviation history collapse less than a minute after takeoff? The engines were inspected, the flaps checked, the weather logs reviewed, and still, no immediate answers. But the black boxes held a clue, not in what they captured, but in what they failed to. A silence that shouldn't exist in that moment, unless something far deeper had gone wrong. The flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder were recovered under piles of ash and twisted metal. It took 28 hours to find the first, and days more to extract usable data. But what analysts heard wasn't panic. It was confusion. The pilots weren't reacting to a known failure. They were reacting to silence. No alarms, no system failures. Just a growing sense that the plane wasn't responding. Scientists cross-checked engine logs, thrust settings, airspeed indicators, and what emerged was chilling. The engines didn't flame out. They idled, not due to damage, but because the aircraft's FADEC system, the digital brain managing the engines, believed the plane was still on the ground. It never entered flight mode. The flaps, possibly misconfigured, never triggered the warnings they were supposed to. The plane's fly-by-wire system, the very network meant to give pilots control through electronics, may have glitched during takeoff. A rare bug, flagged in a 2023 report, could cause the aircraft to pitch unpredictably. Boeing issued a patch, but it's unclear if this plane ever received it. Investigators began to whisper the unthinkable. This wasn't a random crash. This was a cascade of digital blind spots, a machine so advanced it failed without breaking. As more pieces came together, the picture darkened. 2 hours before the crash, the same plane had flown from Delhi to Ahmedabad. Passengers reported malfunctioning screens and broken air conditioning. Small issues, but were they signs? Maintenance logs showed the aircraft, tail number VTB, had its last full check in March. But a nationwide audit revealed a 15% shortage of certified technicians in Indian aviation, including Air India. With tight schedules and a growing fleet, daily checks had been rushed, outsourced, or minimized. Now, under the spotlight, that model began to crack. Boeing's Dreamliner had long carried the reputation of being too complex for traditional maintenance teams. Modular systems, layered digital controls, and software-managed hydraulics made inspections more about screens than spanners. If a sensor misread something, or if a system didn't receive the right patch, the consequences could cascade. Engineers now believe that Flight 171 may have taken off with a software conflict, one that affected the flaps, the thrust, and possibly the flight control logic itself. And because no warning system triggered, the pilots never knew they were flying blind. As the scientific findings leaked into boardrooms and regulatory offices, the fallout was immediate. Boeing stock dropped 9% overnight. Airlines around the world began grounding their Dreamliners. Legal teams from Canada, the UK, Australia, and India prepared to launch wrongful death lawsuits under the Montreal Convention. The scale of the crash and the emerging evidence threatened to destabilize Boeing's most lucrative fleet, over 1,100 Dreamliners in service globally. But the damage wasn't just legal or financial, it was existential. The Dreamliner had been Boeing's flagship of the future, lighter, smarter, more fuel-efficient. But what happens when that very smartness becomes the problem? Inside Boeing's headquarters, emergency meetings unfolded. Crisis response teams were activated. Whistleblower testimonies from 2024, once dismissed, were suddenly being re-examined. Among them, claims of shortcuts in fuselage joints. Others spoke of missed software updates. One memo, redacted but now resurfaced, warned, "If system logic fails during transition, recovery time is minimal." That line, buried in technical language, now reads like prophecy. Because for Flight 171, the logic did fail, and 279 lives were lost before anyone could ask the system to double-check itself. As the investigation deepened, experts began reviewing the Dreamliner's software in detail, its flight logic, engine behavior, and the layered decision-making architecture known as the FADEC. What they discovered didn't look like sabotage, nor traditional mechanical failure. It looked like logic behaving badly. A recurring line in the data suggested a failure to transition into climb mode. It wasn't just a one-time sensor glitch, it was systemic hesitation. The aircraft received mixed inputs about flap position, engine torque, and environmental pressure, data that should have triggered an alert, but instead looped internally. One senior engineer described it as a digital argument with no winner. The system wasn't frozen, it was stuck, trapped between two contradictory states, unsure whether the plane was in takeoff or taxi mode. In this twilight zone, the engines idled, flaps froze, and pilot commands were deprioritized. It's a situation that Boeing's manuals don't even contemplate. But now, it's being compared to the MCAS flaw that downed two 737 MAX planes years earlier. Except this time, it didn't happen in a third-world simulator or during a test run. It happened in front of the world. And this time, the machine didn't miscalculate. It simply hesitated. While investigators focused on the crash, a parallel storm was forming inside Boeing. Internal reviews of production standards, technician rotations, software patching protocols, and subcontractor oversight revealed a truth that had been building for years. Boeing's push for rapid output had created blind spots. Supply chain pressure during the Dreamliner's ramp-up had already led to fuselage joint gaps, delays, and design compromises. Boeing denied serious flaws, but FAA audits and whistleblower reports said otherwise. A 2024 alert by a veteran engineer warned that minor code bugs in the flight control firmware were not being escalated properly through engineering channels. These were not alarmist predictions. They were warnings that drowned in bureaucracy. Meanwhile, Air India had begun outsourcing much of its maintenance, relying on smaller regional contractors. And while the Dreamliner's systems are advanced, they require surgical precision during inspection, precision that, under pressure, may have been sacrificed. The combined result? A modern aircraft misinterpreting reality. And when that misinterpretation happened 625 feet off the ground, there was no way to undo it. Beneath the engineering failures lies another layer of devastation: the people. Burn units across Ahmedabad were overwhelmed. DNA results delayed closure for weeks. Counseling centers recorded hundreds of PTSD cases among responders. Rescue workers described the smell of burning fuel fused with human flesh, the eerie silence that fell over the crash site. The single survivor, Vishwaskumar Romesh, emerged physically damaged but mentally shattered. His recollections were fragmentary: oxygen masks that didn't deploy, lights that flickered, a strange vibration underfoot seconds before impact. His survival was hailed as a miracle, but his testimony, especially about that final vibration, matched the moment the rat may have tried to deploy, too late. Families waited outside hospitals for confirmation, clutching passports and photos, hoping for names that never appeared on survival lists. Meanwhile, across India, schools held vigils. Religious institutions opened their doors to strangers. And public trust, once passive, turned into fury. It wasn't just a crash. It was the collapse of faith in a system that had promised to be smarter, safer, better. The crash of Flight 171 triggered more than grief. It triggered consequences. Countries across Europe, North America, and Asia began inspecting their own Dreamliners. Regulatory agencies requested new software audits. Pilots demanded simulator training for hybrid system failures. Boeing, once insulated by prestige, now faced something more dangerous than lawsuits: public doubt. India's aviation regulator hinted at grounding all 787s unless Boeing could prove there were no deeper flaws. Air India, once the comeback kid under Tata's leadership, had its global brand shattered. Talks of shifting future orders to Airbus intensified. Across diplomatic channels, pressure mounted. The UK, Canada, and Australia demanded transparent updates. Compensation claims ballooned. And in Washington, murmurs about renewed congressional hearings on Boeing's software ethics began to stir. What happened on June 12th wasn't isolated. It was a rupture: technological, emotional, geopolitical. And for Boeing, whose identity rested on being the trusted name in the sky, that rupture could prove existential. Because this time, the enemy wasn't sabotage, terrorism, or weather. It was the very thing they designed. Flight 171 wasn't supposed to fall. It wasn't old. It wasn't fragile. It wasn't behind on technology. It was a Boeing 787 Dreamliner, an aircraft that symbolized everything modern aviation claimed to be: intelligent, redundant, virtually indestructible. And yet it crashed in 30 seconds. Not because a part snapped, not because a bird struck an engine, but because the very brain of the aircraft, its software, its sensors, its logic, saw the world incorrectly and acted accordingly. The tragedy wasn't just in the flames. It was in the silence, in the lack of alarms, in the smooth data logs showing systems normal as the aircraft plummeted, in a pilot's mayday that was cut off mid-sentence, in engines that obeyed faulty logic instead of human command, and in a digital system that didn't fail because it didn't believe it had to. This wasn't one error. It was layers of assumptions, stacked silently, hidden beneath years of confidence. A bug that wasn't patched, a checklist that wasn't questioned, a culture of speed over certainty. And when it all converged, one aircraft became a symbol, not of aviation progress, but of its fragility. Boeing didn't just lose a plane. It lost a narrative, the one that says, trust the system, because the system knows better. Because what Flight 171 proved, beyond data, beyond wreckage, is that no system, no matter how advanced, can afford to stop doubting itself. And when it does, the fall isn't just physical, it's moral, it's global, it's irreversible. If this story unsettled you, if it made you rethink what really keeps planes in the air, if it made you question what happens when logic replaces instinct, then don't let it fade away. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss the truths others are too afraid to say. Hit the bell, because next time, it won't just be a Dreamliner. Share this video with someone who still believes these systems are flawless. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was this just an accident, or something we all saw coming?